This is a story that when it was told to me, I was told that I could not tell this in the East Kingdom. You may tell it to people from the East Kingdom, but you cannot tell it in the East Kingdom. And if anybody from the East Kingdom is here, I'm saying that Zoom doesn't count. It's just when you're out and about, don't tell it. And the reasons will be obvious once you hear the story. Many, many years ago, there was a woman who was the head cook for an event. And she was dressed quite properly in a lovely blue gown and a white veil. And as she was cooking, she realized she lacked a vital ingredient, and she must have that ingredient for the feast. And so she set out on a quest into the land of Mundane. And she got into her wagon of the folk and drove it along. And you should know something about Mundania. Their ways are not our ways, for they have these magical lights. And sometimes the lights are red, which means you stop. Sometimes the lights are green, which means you go. Sometimes the lights are yellow, which means you go very fast. But since she was driving in the land of Mundania, she was being very careful about following the rules. Well, as one of these lights magically turned red and she had to stop, she looked over, and there was a young wastrel, a young criminal, selling wares that he should not have been selling. And so she decided to make her displeasure known. She glared at him to let him know that what he was doing was not right. And then the light magically turned green. And so she drove on. Now, this wagon had a special feature, for there was a mirror in which she could look and see what was behind her. And as she happened to glance in the mirror, she saw that very same wastrel drop to his knees in prayer. And she thought, this is odd, but the ways of Mundania are strange. And so she drove on and eventually found the ingredient she needed, and the feast was saved. Several years later, as luck would have it, she was cooking another feast and lacked a vital ingredient, and so she went forth, although this time she decided to disguise herself as a mundane. So she set aside her blue gown and her white veil and went out into Mundania. And as luck would have it, she stopped at that very bodega where she had once seen that young man going down the wrong path in life. She decided to go into the bodega to see if they had this ingredient that she needed. And she went in and she saw there was a statue to Our Lady, as one would expect. But then she noticed that Our Lady was holding a wheel. Somebody had taken the wheel of a tiny toy car and placed it into the Virgin Mary's hands. The Virgin Mary, who was wearing a blue robe and a white headscarf, as one would expect. And the woman thought this was odd, and she asked the proprietor. And he said, "Oh, you have not heard of Our Lady of the Volkswagen?" She said she had not. He said, "Well, several years ago, there was a young man, and he was going down the wrong path in life. He had dropped out of high school. He was selling drugs. One day, he saw, of all things, the Virgin Mary driving a Volkswagen. And he could tell by the way she looked at him that he was going to hell if he did not change his life. Well, he dropped out of the gang. He got his GED, started a program for at-risk youth to help keep kids out of gangs, and has become just a pillar of the community. Well, this woman thanked him for the story, did not mention anything, and turned around and left. So just remember this. What we do matters. We bring magic in the world, and we affect those around us, whether or not we realize it. And that was the story of Our Lady of the Volkswagen. Thank you.